Okay, welcome to this webinar hosted by the Bowman Center for Sustainable Energy. The Bowman Center for Sustainable Energy is a federally incorporated nonprofit think tank. Our members have lived and worked across Canada, and with respect and friendship, we acknowledge that our office in Sarnia, Ontario, is on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy. I am Marshall Kern, the president of the Bowman Center for Sustainable Energy. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. When you have a question, please enter it in the chat function of Zoom, and I shall moderate the questions at the end of the presentation. Today, we are pleased to share with you a presentation on agrivoltaics by Emma Vanderjagt. Emma Vanderjagt is a researcher who has taken a technical report the Bowman Center commissioned through Queen's University and extended the scope to the work of the agriculture sector. I'm very pleased to welcome Emma Vanderjagt to deliver her research results to us today. Emma.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. As mentioned, my name is Emma Vanderjagt, and I'm very excited to talk to you all today about the potential applicability of agrivoltaics to Ontario farms. So before I start my discussion of agrivoltaics, I firstly would like to explain what a distributed energy resource, or DER, as well as a virtual power plant, or VPP, is. Then I will provide a quick overview of agrivoltaics and discuss some of the successful applications that have been recorded internationally. Moving on, there will be a discussion of the benefits of agrivoltaics to all those involved and some of the current barriers that are facing agrivoltaic development. So, a DER is a term used to describe any electrical component that supplies or stores energy. Common examples of this include things such as solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, etc. DERs are often used to supplement or replace the need for energy provided by the local distribution grid. A virtual power plant is formed by connecting a series of these DERs to one another. By monitoring and controlling the amount of energy produced and used by each of the components connected, the system can adapt to meet the present electrical demand. During peak times, when the local grid is strained to meet the elevated electrical demands, VPPs provide an opportunity to increase the overall system capacity, which improves the reliability of the system, helping to prevent any energy shortages and, in some more extreme cases, blackouts. The efficacy of VPPs can already be seen throughout Ontario through various programs that have been developed. One such example is the Save on Energy Peak Perks program, which is run by the IESO. The program, which was launched in 2023, has accumulated over 100,000 participants within its first 6 months. It uses smart thermostats to reduce the stress placed on Ontario's electrical distribution system throughout summer heat waves. By registering into the program, participants agree to have the temperature on their thermostat regulated and increased by 2 to 4 degrees on a maximum of 3 days throughout the hot summer months. In exchange, participants receive a one-time $75 payment for joining the program and an additional $20 annual payment for every year that they continue to subscribe. Additionally, to encourage participation, participants who do not currently own a smart thermostat receive free installation for joining the program. While one singular home adopting this would not have a major impact on the overall grid, the scale of the project has resulted in an energy demand reduction of 90 megawatts during peak hours. This demonstrates the impact that VPPs can have on electrical usage. It should also be noted that while this program does incorporate devices that use energy, no electrical generation devices are used. This suggests that a project of similar scale that utilizes energy generation technology, such as, for example, solar panels or wind turbines, would have an even greater impact on the available energy within the local grid. Agrivoltaics, or more formally known as agricultural and solar co-location, is a prime opportunity to introduce new DERs that generate power and can support the local grid. There are many different types of agrivoltaic sites. However, they can often be divided into one of three categories: agricultural, livestock, or pollinator habitat projects. In an agricultural project, photovoltaic panels are installed over the top of crop fields. The crops are therefore shaded by the panels, and all management of crops, including the planting, fertilizing, and harvesting of crops, is done underneath the panels. Depending on the density of the panel coverage, there are varying levels of agricultural projects. A vegetation-centric project is characterized by a low density of solar panels that prioritizes little to no disruption of the crops or their maintenance. On the other hand, a solar-centric project prioritizes solar energy production and typically includes a high density of solar panels. This can cover the majority of the crops. It is extremely uncommon for crops to thrive in such a light deficiency, so typically such sites experience a dramatic reduction in crop yield. In between an agricultural project and a solar-centric project is a co-location and co-optimization project. These projects are engineered in an attempt to maximize solar energy generation and agricultural production. Consequently, the planning and design stage of such projects is typically quite long and expensive, making as there's requirements for consultation with experts and careful consideration of the farm geography and present conditions that must be considered in order to ensure the system efficacy. For the sake of this project, agricultural sites of a variety of different configurations were considered when determining the benefits and barriers that agrivoltaic systems face. However, livestock sites are currently the most common form of agrivoltaic system within North America. They typically involve the introduction of grazing animals. This can include sheep, goats, or cows to graze underneath the solar panels. This is a mutually beneficial system as both the animals as well as the owners of the panels receive major benefits from the configuration. Animals receive shade from the solar installations and large expanses of grazing land, while the farm owners are able to limit any grass maintenance or cutting. Finally, pollinator habitat systems are designed to support the natural wildlife and provide a safe habitat for pollinators such as bees and butterflies. By promoting the growth of wildflowers and other pollen or nectar-producing plants underneath the panels, the pollinators are provided with a sheltered and vegetation-dense field to develop nesting sites. They, similarly to a livestock system, do not require much maintenance. To gain an understanding of the different crops and livestock that are compatible with agrivoltaic systems, I investigated the crops and livestock shown here. While this is in no means an exhaustive list into the different types of agrivoltaic systems currently active around the world, it does include the crops that are currently most common within Ontario. As I continue and discuss my findings, it should be noted that the information gathered to form my conclusions comes from a variety of different studies, and these studies were conducted all around the world. While some climates are similar to that of Ontario, others are vastly different, and further investigation into how different crops and livestock react to agrivoltaic systems in Ontario is highly recommended going forward. So, out of the crops that were investigated, the 6 listed here showed potential for agrivoltaic success based on the information available. The information applied on corn was from a study completed in Japan. It was also noted that while corn benefited from a low density of solar panel cover, which was characterized by spacing of 1.67 meters between panels, a higher density of panels with only 0.67 meters between subsequent panels ultimately resulted in a decrease in yield. This suggests that while corn may be a good option for agrivoltaic development, it would suffer from a solar-centric system. Winter wheat showed a similar variation in production levels depending on the growing conditions. Crops grown in a warmer climate have seen up to a 20% increase in yield, while cooler climates tended to see less of a benefit, resulting in closer to a 3% increase in yield. Both oats and broccoli, which were studied in Germany and Korea respectively, experienced little to no change in overall yield. However, it was noted that the broccoli appeared darker than those which were grown in a traditional farm, making it more appealing to the general public looking to purchase it for consumption. Barley, which was studied in the Mediterranean, and tomatoes, which were studied in Arizona, have limited data available for their success in cooler climates, such as that of Ontario. However, their results in warmer climates showed significant promise. So alongside the crops that showed potential in agrivoltaic systems, sheep and pollinator habitats were also found to be very strong candidates. Sheep, as compared to goats or cows, are light and tend not to interfere with the solar panels or electrical system. Cows are found too heavy, and if the solar panels were not sufficiently elevated, would often run into them, damaging the panel structure and limiting their efficiency. Goats, while lighter, made it a habit of jumping onto the panels. This would damage the panels, and additionally, the goats often would chew on the electrical wires, damaging the system and introducing a safety hazard. The sheep, however, did not interfere much with the system at all, and tended to benefit from the shelter provided by the panels, reducing their chances of overheating. Similarly, the panels provided shelter for pollinators to feed and construct necessary hives and other things necessary to their daily lives. Without disruption from human interference, wildflowers planted under the panels were able to grow and spread undisturbed. Besides the direct benefits to the crops, livestock, and pollinators, there are a number of other major benefits that agrivoltaics provide. Firstly, any tall vegetation such as crops, wildflowers, long grass, etc., underneath the panels help to reduce the accumulated heat. On a traditional solar farm, heat islands accumulate under the panels from heat getting trapped under them. Given that most solar panels have a degradation rate of approximately 0.6% per degree Celsius, above the temperatures of 25 degrees Celsius, any ability to cool the panels is extremely important. It also helps to reduce the stress that the crops are under, as they remain warmer during the winter and cooler in the summer, making this temperature regulation effect beneficial for both the crops and the panels. It has also been noted that the installation of posts, such as those required for solar arrays, add stability to the soil and prevent as much sliding of the topsoil. This not only improves the soil quality, but also prevents erosion at its usual rate. For farms which experience erosion due to undulations in their field, an agrivoltaic system would provide some support while also introducing an entirely new revenue opportunity. Additionally, the shade provided by the solar panels aids in reducing water usage. In Mexico, a study on jalapenos and cherry tomatoes saw a maximum increase of water efficiency of up to 157%. During drier than typical growing seasons, any increase in water efficiency plays an instrumental role on increasing crop yields. Investing in an agrivoltaic system opens up the opportunity for substantial savings on electrical bills. Ontario offers a net metering system in order to compensate those who connect their energy generation projects to the grid. Net metering is a system where the amount of power used by the site is deducted from the amount of energy that the site provides to the grid. In cases where the site uses more energy than it provides, then the local distribution company will charge them for the difference. If the site provides the grid with more energy than it uses, then the consumer is provided with a credit for the excess amount. This credit can then be applied to future bills. Hence, agrivoltaics provides an opportunity for savings, as farm owners can offset their electrical bills and greatly reduce, or in some cases even eliminate, any payments. Alongside this, the government provides a 30% income tax credit called the solar tax credit, which offsets the cost of installation. This credit is only available in the years in which a system is under construction. However, it greatly reduces any risk in system implementation. The solar tax credit is just one of the many potential benefits to the users, but there's also a number of benefits to distributors. Agrivoltaics provides a low-risk opportunity for local distribution companies to increase their system capacity and reduce their dependence on non-renewable energy sources. Importantly, farmland and optimal landscapes for solar implementation share many characteristics. They are both flat and have a large, vast expanse of space, making farms optimal locations for solar development. As well, given that the design and installation process is managed by the farm owners rather than the distribution companies, there is little initial investment from the electrical companies and significantly lowered chances of litigation action against the distributors, as they are not responsible for the site themselves. While there are many benefits to agrivoltaics, in order to realize their full potential, a number of barriers must first be overcome. Presently, within Ontario, the only payment system available for agrivoltaic systems is a net metering credit-based system. This suits the average household rooftop system, which produces between 5,000 and 10,000 kilowatt hours per month, roughly matching the power that an average Ontario home requires. However, for their system size, most agricultural farms use relatively small amounts of power. Hence, if an agrivoltaic system were to be developed to cover the entire farm, it would simply not be profitable. Although such a large system would be the most beneficial to both the crops and the surrounding community, as the crops would receive the shading benefits that agrivoltaics provides, and the community would be able to experience a major increase in electrical capacity, there would be no way for the farmer to earn money for this additional power generated. Instead, they would continually accumulate large amounts of credit towards their electrical bill. This greatly disincentivizes any farmers from designing and constructing such a large system, as it is well more than they would need to match their electrical power usage. Historically, the FIT program has offered a solution to this. The owners of the solar array would enter into a contract with the local distribution system that would include some compensation for each kilowatt hour of power produced. This incentivizes owners to develop a larger system, as they would be able to earn more of a profit. However, the FIT program was discontinued and no similar programs have been developed to replace it. There are, however, some grants and tax credits available, as previously discussed. These are limited in both the number of grants as well as the impact that such grants and credits can have on the site development. Ontario currently offers a Greener Homes grant, which offers a grant to cover the system implementation costs, as well as the aforementioned solar tax credit. However, the Greener Homes grant is only open to residential dwellings and is not presently taking any new applicants, making any agrivoltaic systems ineligible. However, while the solar tax credit is helpful, it also only applies to the year that the system is constructed and installed. Therefore, this does not have a major long-term impact on the project. Alongside of the economic barriers, there are also a few regulatory barriers that must be considered. Primarily, according to the 2020 Provincial Policy Statement, in order to introduce any solar development on prime agricultural land, the site must be classified as an on-farm diversified property. This introduces a number of restrictions on the agrivoltaic system, including the need to coexist with agricultural operations, the fact that there must not be any major impact to crop growth. The system must meet all of the relevant environmental standards, and the photovoltaic system must be secondary to the agriculture. This additionally requires that there is little soil compaction as a result of implementation, and that the solar implementation does not limit that year's crop growth. There must also be no need for additional drainage unless it improves the agricultural production. While most of these restrictions can be considered in the design process, it does limit the flexibility that farmers have on how they wish for their agrivoltaic systems to appear. The installation process must also be carefully considered to ensure that it is done effectively and quickly to prevent soil compaction or any impact to that year's crop growth. There is also the need for a number of permits and inspections to be completed throughout the design and implementation stages. While many of these are standard throughout most new projects, such as construction and operation permits, as well as any electrical safety inspections, it does create some uncertainty in the project timelines, as often permits can take anywhere from a few weeks to months before an approval is granted. Additionally, there is a requirement that certified workers and licensed electrical contractors are present during the construction process. This may slow down the process further, as some implementation must be halted until such experts are available. Further, any electrical solar project over 10 kilowatts must submit a DER application form if they wish to be connected to the local grid. They also must complete a connection impact assessment. Included in this process is the need to consult and gain approval from a professional engineer. This can be expensive and time-consuming, and once again introduces a lot of uncertainty into the design and construction process. The available infrastructure must also be considered. Most commercial solar mounts extend to a height no taller than 14 feet. The panels then, when tilted any way other than directly horizontal, will often extend below this 14-foot mark. Given the size of farm machinery, it is not uncommon for them to extend just short of 14 feet high, as this is the height of most overpasses on roads. Hence, this opens up the potential for a collision if the solar panels are not rotated to a horizontal configuration prior to the machine passing underneath them. Besides the potential for collision due to the height of the solar infrastructure, the GPS systems on most farm machinery must also be considered. John Deere and Trimble, two of the most common farm machinery brands, utilize satellite information in order to pinpoint the exact location of their machinery. The location is then used to ensure that all crops are planted in the most optimal arrangement and all maintenance and harvesting is done effectively. However, these systems are highly sensitive to any form of obstruction and are prone to losing satellite connection. The solar panels have the potential to limit the connectivity between the machinery and the satellite, reducing the farm's ability to effectively plant, maintain, and harvest their crops. Finally, the potential societal impacts of solar development must also be considered. Large solar installations will disrupt the local rural landscape, potentially creating some public backlash, as was seen when wind farms were being developed. However, given that solar panels sit much lower to the ground than a wind turbine, it is less likely for this to be as big of a barrier. Given the fact that agrivoltaics is a relatively new field, the public also has very little understanding of how such projects can benefit crop growth and food production within Ontario. It is therefore likely that prior to any large-scale agrivoltaic development, an education campaign for both farmers as well as the general public must be completed to prevent major backlash against new agrivoltaic projects. Ultimately, agrivoltaics has the potential to improve crop yields and livestock health when integrated with a number of common Ontario crops and livestock. However, without any alternatives to a credit-based payment system, large-scale agrivoltaic development is not feasible. There are additionally many regulatory barriers that limit the flexibility that farmers have when designing and implementing agrivoltaic systems. Before I finish up, I would just like to express my appreciation and gratitude to the Bowman Center for Sustainable Energy. In particular, I would like to thank Ed Brost, Peter Smith, and Don Greaves for their unwavering dedication and help that they have provided me throughout this process. I would also like to extend my thanks to Mark Lumley, who provided me with invaluable insight and a farmer's perspective on the issue. Thank you very much for your time and for listening. I'm very happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Yes, there are some questions. You've certainly struck a chord with your presentation, and Southwestern Ontario being noted for agriculture as a very significant part of our economy. This is entirely appropriate for us. So we'll begin with a couple of the questions that have come in. Would a farmer be able to get revenue from a pollinator supporting system, or could a pollinator photovoltaic system be carried out on public land?
Well, as to whether or not it could be carried out on public land, that would obviously be up to the discretion of the government. However, it definitely does provide an opportunity for some income, as there is obviously the ability to farm bees and produce honey, etc., which can be sold. Honey is very valuable right now, especially because there's been so much damage done to the bee population. So while it may take a little bit more time to develop the population of bees required to actually return a profit, there is certainly a potential for any large scale pollinator habitat agrivoltaic system to really make a difference, both in terms of the number of bees within the area and also make a difference to the owner by way of profit.
Okay. Then there's a question, because you did mention that goats in particular like to chew the wiring. Is there a way to minimize some animals' appetite to eat the system wiring and cause other damage to the panels? Is there basically a way to deter any livestock from harming the system?
Well, I mean, so there's obviously you can always add extra protection to any wiring, right? The more layers, the better. As for actually preventing them from chewing the wires, it would just come down to keeping it out of the way as much as possible. From the research that I have done, I have not seen any, strong options in terms of ways that you can do this, but it is still a relatively new field, and there's different innovation and different ideas coming through every day. So I'm sure someone will figure out a way to minimize this impact, whether it's putting the wiring underground or through, the posts that the solar panels rest on. There's a lot of different opportunities to solve that issue. And yeah.
And I've certainly learned in conversation with many friends who are farmers in southwestern Ontario, never underestimate the common sense of a farmer. So there is probably an idea out there as well. Next question is, do you know, are there any commercial scale agrivoltaic operations in Ontario or in Canada?
Presently in Ontario, I do not believe so. The US has over 300 currently, and they've been extremely successful, but Canada is very slow on the uptake on this one. However, it does pose such a great opportunity that I really recommend any farmers and anyone interested to start looking into it more, because it's a great opportunity to increase crop yields and provide more energy to our local grids.
Okay, and because you're mentioning that other jurisdictions are doing this as well, another question here is, given that other jurisdictions are deploying agrivoltaic systems, this suggests that there are few, if any, technical barriers to the technology. It appears that regulations and government policy are the main opportunity to grow an agrivoltaic system or sector in Ontario. Is that a correct understanding from your research?
That is very correct. Yes, um, the major impacts that have been seen around the world are certainly there's been a lot of different programs run. I know the Korean government and the Japanese government, as well as some of the different states within the US, have all offered different grants and incentives to help start up these projects. A lot of them offer the ability to subscribe to different research groups because this is obviously a very new field. And so joining these different research groups and having research done with the farms involved has been really beneficial and has encouraged people to join just out of the interest of science. And then there's certainly the regulatory barriers in place, particularly pertaining to the requirement for all solar development to be on only on-farm diversified properties, has really limited the ability for different farms to introduce any form of solar development just because there's so many additional um, hoops that they have to jump through in the process.
Thank you. If anybody else has questions, please be sure to put them into the chat function of Zoom, and we'll get to those questions. There are several more, Emma. Can a solar panel array include rainwater collection so that there can be better management of moisture needs for plants?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as long as you're not disrupting the actual interface of the panels, so where the sunlight is hitting, installing, rainwater collection or an eaves trough like system
Mhm.
on the side of it would be a really great opportunity to disperse water and prevent pooling potentially, or just to, make sure that all of the crops are getting an even amount of water if needed.
Great. Now, one of your slides, you explained that solar arrays are now available at a standard 14-foot height. Uh, this question is about a solar farm where the person visiting was told that the solar panel array had to be close to the ground to avoid catching a lot of wind. Is this still an engineering concern?
So it certainly is. However, I actually spoke with a company that designs solar panels within Canada, and they have developed different mounts that can reach up to 14 feet in height and have been certified by professional engineers to prove that they are compatible with wind and compatible with snow levels that are typical of Ontario. So you certainly have to go through and do your research and make sure that you're getting one of these high quality systems, but they are available and they can be implemented.
Again, I think that just supports the assertion that engineers love a challenge. So, question here about the length of life. This is still a very new application with agrivoltaics. Do you have any indication yet about the normal or expected lifespan for agrivoltaic systems?
Well, so the average solar panel lasts between 20 and 30 years. Most warranties are for approximately 25 years, so you are protected up until then. As for actual agrivoltaic systems, it's such a new field that most systems were, internationally weren't even developed until call it 2015, 2017. And so it's very new, but all of the projects that have been developed are still up and running. So it's a good sign that, call it 10 years, you're pretty good right now, but um, we will have to wait and see how long they last.
And I can certainly understand that question would have a substantial impact on the calculation of economics of a system over a period of time. So thank you for that. The last question that's in the chat function right now is, will your report be available to the audience, and will the recording of your presentation be available? And for that, I know that Don Greaves, the Vice President for the Bowman Center for Sustainable Energy, has been running the recording. I expect the recording will be available on our website, bowmancenter.com, sometime fairly soon. But Emma, what will be the process now for your report? Because you've been working with several of the associates of the Bowman Center. What now can we expect from your report?
Yes, so there is a report coming. It should be finalized by the end of the week. And included in that is actually a case study done with one of the local Sarnia farms, Fairwind Farms, which is owned by Mark Lumley. And it goes into all of the economic factors and looks at the different crops that may be relevant for the land. It also showed that over an 18-year period, the system will be completely paid off and that there will be a significant amount of profit earned within 30 years of implementation. So shows really promising results, and I'm excited to share the report with everybody.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the amount of time you've spent preparing your report and this presentation. Again, you've spoken about the dedication of several of the associates in working with you to prepare this. It doesn't appear that there are any more questions. So I will conclude this webinar by thanking everybody for your attendance. Again, it's been recorded. The report will be available. Please check our website, bowmancenter.com. And if you've received an email from us, please let us know any changes to your email address so that we can continue to invite you to future webinars. Thank you very much, everybody. This webinar is now at an end.